Everyone, Happy New Year. It's been a while. Hopefully, everyone had a great holiday season and we're back on live again. Thank you so much for joining us. Our ovaries contain a finite number of eggs, and their quality is paramount. Egg quality refers to having the correct amount of chromosomes that are crucial for a successful pregnancy. And research shows egg quality declines with age, impacting fertility outcomes. By age 35, only about 50 to 60% of a women's eggs are chromosomally normal. And therefore we should take some precautions to optimize our egg qualities and improve our chance of conception. And that's why we're so glad to chat on IG Live today with Pryscilla Ladeira, a certified fertility health coach. So during this live, we are going to discuss why egg quality is just as, if not more important than ovulation tracking, nutrition tips for improving egg quality, how environmental factors impact having a viable pregnancy. I saw Pri just. Hello, Happy New Year. Hi, Priscilla. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hello.
Yeah, this is our first Instagram live after, before the holiday season. And also we have like a little period of rest. And so this is super exciting to talk about this topic. I feel like it's it's so aligned for New Year resolution, and not only, egg quality impact fertility outcome, but I also felt like it's because it's linked to nutrition and then so many things. It's almost as the fifth sign for your health.
I agree. Yeah. It's such a pleasure to be here and be the first live of 2025. And I agree, with the start of the new year, a lot of people have fertility resolutions. So we can touch on a subject that's so important for fertility and sometimes not talked about enough.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you became a certified fertility health coach.
Sure. So everything started with my own struggles with fertility. I was working at tech at Google for a long time, and I thought I had everything figured out. I had a good career. Never really had like that big dream of being a mother. I just thought it was going to happen. And then when I faced fertility challenges, it's something that it seemed like I hit a wall. And I went through a IVF journey where my first cycle, I only retrieved 3 eggs, and that led to only one viable embryo. And I was determined, even though my doctor told me that there was nothing I could do to improve the quality of my eggs, I was determined to actually find out myself. And I learned that actually there's a lot of things that we can do to improve egg quality. And so I was determined to apply all of those things that I learned. Even though she told me she did not recommend because I had to take a break to do those things. Um, and after I applied everything that I learned, I went from 3 eggs to 16 in my second retrieval, and from one viable embryo to 6 viable embryos. And now I am like a proud mother of 2 amazing children. And so that's why I decided that I needed to help other women couple that were going through something similar, and wanted to share everything because all of that came as good news to me. So I was like, I need to share this with other women, like infertility, fertility challenges seems like to just be increasing. And so I was like, why nobody else is talking about this? So I decided to become a health coach to actually help. It became my mission to help other couples, women trying to conceive, to do everything we can to improve their chances. And with that, I left my 12-year career at Google to pursue fertility coaching.
Wow, that is amazing, amazing story. And I also feel that, improving your egg quality, if you're doing IVF, obviously that improves outcome. If you don't, then that improves your health. And then I think there's also, besides, yeah, sure, you get a great outcome. There's also so many other benefit relates to this because we know IVF is so expensive and it's like such like a burden on women's body. So if you can even reduce how many IVF cycles that you need to have, that's huge.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head because um, when you are going through IVF, you want to make sure you are doing everything you can to have the best outcome possible. And if you're just going into IVF without working on egg quality, and I want to make a parenthesis here. We're going to talk about egg quality, but I want people to understand that this is it's important for sperm as well, right? It's 50% of the equation, and we're seeing how um, men's fertility is also decreasing. And so, and it's so funny because nature works really well. Our the window of opportunity that we have to influence egg quality is like 3 to 4 months, which is exactly the cycle of sperm formation. So when we are working with the couple, it's even the timing is synced. Um, so yeah, so when you go into IVF, it's such a emotional, physical, financial investment that you want to make sure you are doing everything that you can to improve your chances and going into IVF without working on that foundation that it's egg and sperm quality is like, throwing spaghetti on the wall, hoping that something sticks. You're leaving too much to chance. And what I see is that I see a lot of cases, and I've seen people get a decent number of eggs during IVF, but then they have no viable embryos or sometimes very few because the foundation, the eggs and the sperms were not of good quality, so they cannot have good embryos. And so the number of eggs is just part of the story. It's just like the beginning. Sometimes you can get 6 eggs, but if they're good quality, they're gonna yield better embryos. And so, and that comes with, that goes back to the chromosomal health of those eggs and sperms, right? For an embryo to survive those first days and weeks after fertilization, it requires so much energy because they're like dividing up to form a new human being. And if the egg and the sperm is of not a good quality, they're not going to have that essential energy to become that healthy embryo. So, very basically, if you don't have those foundations, those building blocks to create that healthy embryo, it's really hard for you to have good outcomes in IVF.
You literally just answered my next question because I was going to ask you, why is quality so important, especially for IVF, and even if you're like conceiving at home, that it's still like a really important for to play, like they have an important role to play in a successful pregnancy.
Yes, because it all comes back to the embryo health. With IVF, we are looking at getting, multiple embryos so we don't have to go through the injections and appointments and the financial burden that it comes with it multiple times. But if you are trying to conceive naturally, again, we need those healthy building blocks that is going to make that embryo healthy and viable. When we talk about viable embryos. We are talking about those DNA genetically healthy that have the right number of chromosomes, and they're going to survive those um, first weeks and of after fertilization. So basically, it doesn't matter if you are trying to conceive via IVF, IUI, or naturally, embryo health, which comes from healthy eggs and sperm, is foundational.
Yeah. What approach do you see like most clients take at first, and then, in order to kind of convince them like focusing on egg quality is much more effective at increasing their chances of conception?
That is a great question because I feel like when you start trying to conceive, the first thing that you think about, or you even instructed by doctors or friends that have been trying to conceive, is like get the timing right, right? You need to um, have that egg fertilized. You need to make sure that sperm is meeting the egg. And so we really focus on having sex at the right time when you're ovulating, like before, few days before you ovulate, when you're ovulating, and then one day after. And we do, basal body temperature, the OP keys, and all of that, that really is focused on timing. But then it's like you're baking a cake. If you don't have the right ingredients and the good ingredients, it doesn't matter if you put the cake and the right temperature at the right time in the oven, you're not going to get a good cake. So the same thing goes with conception. If you don't have those building blocks, if you don't have good egg and sperm quality, um, the egg and the sperm, they can meet, but there's not going to develop into a healthy embryo, and it's not going to result in a successful pregnancy.
That's
So,
a perfect analogy.
exactly. So, again, focusing, of course, timing matters. When you have, good sperm and good egg quality, uh, you're not going to get pregnant if you have sex after you ovulated. It is part of the equation, but it's not as important as people think are. There's something more important, which is egg and sperm quality.
Many women feel they're pressured by their age, and then it's like a clock ticking until they're out of time. Like, why do you say, age isn't everything?
This is actually one of my favorite topics to discuss because it's such an empowering truth here. For example, research really shows that in many parts of the modern world, a woman in her 20s today is less fertile than her grandma was when she was 35. So that really shows that age, it's not all, it again is just part of the equation, right? Um, it really shows that fertility is much more than the number of candles on your birthday cake. And with that study that we have, it really shows how our environment actually impact fertility much more than age. Because if we think about the world that we are living at, nowadays we are bombarded with endocrine disrupting chemicals and everyday items. It's like our beauty products, our cleaning products, um, so like the stuff that we use in the kitchen, and that affects female and male fertility. And so again, that shows that it's not just about age. We are seeing an increased decline in male fertility, and it is not because of age. And so, in that context, mitochondrial health, uh, which is like we're going to talk a little bit more about mitochondria, I think, but I just wanted to touch a little bit how that really influences egg and sperm quality. And again, age is a factor, but it's just a piece of this much bigger fertility puzzle.
So we're big fans of not bi- what big fans of environmental factors and EDCs. Not a fan of their impact, but a fan of getting public educated on this topic and empower people to do more to reduce their exposures. And you did have a post mentioning, environmental factors like endocrine disrupting chemicals can impact fertility. So what are these chemicals? So what are the common sources of them?
Sure. So, these chemicals in our everyday stuff are BPA, and probably it became kind of uh, a something that everybody was talking about. BPA free plastic, right? But so BPA is one of them, and phthalates is another big chemical that we are exposed to on our everyday products. And I just wanted to make a small note about BPA. BPA is just one class of the bisphenols that we talk, bisphenol A. We have so many other types of bisphenols. And once BPA became the bad guy, the industry was really fast to actually use other types of BPA. So even if you have plastic that says BPA free, it doesn't mean it's totally free of bisphenols. And there are other types of bisphenols that are as bad as BPA or sometimes even worse. And so BPA, you can find BPA in plastic, which is where it became the bad guy, receipt, canned foods, and phthalates, again, in plastic, personal care products, cleaning products, even our clothes sometimes, if we are using more of like the synthetic fibers, our food, because there is pesticides. So really, is surrounding us, but there's things that we can do to minimize those impacts. Because one thing that I always talk about, our bodies are designed to heal. And we were just, and it's good and detoxifying. Our body is made to detoxify, but we are being exposed to such an amount um such a big amount of those chemicals that our bodies is just not able to detoxify as it was supposed to. So when we reduce those exposure, we are actually reducing the burden and helping our body detoxify. Um, and there's a very interesting Harvard study on BPA and IVF outcomes, and they found that women with higher BPA levels during IVF had fewer eggs retrieved, lower estrogen levels, and fewer viable embryos. So it's already shown that those chemicals do have a big impact in fertility.
Absolutely. And there are actually more and more studies coming out that these chemicals not only impacting fertility, they also impact, your metabolic health. They are also, obesogens, diabetes. So even if you are not considering, getting pregnant, reducing the exposures can also benefit others or yourself and others around you.
Of course, because they are endocrine disruptors as well. And just a little bit of exposure to those things, like our hormones, they act on a feedback loop. Just a tiny bit sends a big message. And when those chemicals come and disrupt this messaging system, it creates a big impact. And it's something that even after having kids, even after becoming pregnant, something that I take to life now, because my kids, I don't want them being exposed to those things because it's going to impact their development as well. It's not just about their fertility. So it's something that impacts so many others of our lives.
Your kids are so lucky to have you,
Thank
and they're like
you.
literally on the right trajectory from the beginning.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You mentioned the mitochondria. I think for many viewers, they might not know what mitochondria is, and then, and also explain how toxicant could impact mitochondria.
Sure. So I wanted to explain a little bit of mitochondria. So mitochondria is just like this part of the cell. It's like a power plant of the cell, and every cell has thousands of them. And the egg and the sperm are just another type of cell. But the egg has like hundreds of thousands of mitochondria because they actually need a lot of energy to grow and to divide when they are supposed to become embryos. I think the egg is the cell that has more mitochondria than like the heart is one of the biggest one, but I think the egg has more mitochondria than the heart. And that is no coincidence. It's because it really demands a lot of energy to actually produce, to create a human brain. And same thing with the sperm. And so the energy that is produced in the mitochondria, it's called ATP. And those chemicals, they actually damage the mitochondria. BPA and phthalates, they can actually influence the ability to produce proper ATP. And again, when we don't have that proper energy, we're not going to have a healthy embryo. It's going to lead to chromosomal abnormalities. And with that, we see that chromosomal abnormalities accounts to 50% of recognize miscarriages and one of the leading factors of failed IVF cycles. So all in all, we see that all of that it's so important. And again, mitochondrial health is equally important for male fertility as well.
So we talked about the environmental toxicant. Do you have any other tips for balancing hormones for egg quality?
Sure. Yeah. So as we talked about, the chemicals, they're gonna act in two ways. They are endocrine disruptors. So, they're gonna affect your hormones and they're gonna damage the mitochondria. So when it comes to hormones, I think one big thing, sugar balance, is fundamental for hormonal health because again, our body is designed to be connected and communicating with every single part, and hormonal has that connection. When you have spikes in blood sugar, you're going to have high insulin levels, and that affects fertility hormones because insulin is a hormone that's going to signal to other hormones as well, including the fertility hormones. And so that can really disrupt those reproductive hormones like FSH and L8. Another thing that it's important for hormones is body fat. Too much body fat, you're going to have estrogen dominance, which can disrupt menstrual cycle. They can prevent ovulation. They can create implantation issues. And too little fat can actually suppress reproductive hormones because all of our hormones are actually made of fat. Like cholesterol is at the top of the cycle. We need cholesterol to create all types of hormones in our body. And so balance here is key, right? We want to have this balance in terms of fat and blood sugar. And another thing that it brings us to another hormone is cortisol. Intense workouts is actually not very supportive of fertility. If you're already working out, um, just not go ask like too much over what your body is used to. But even if you're like a high intensity athlete, maybe when you are focusing on fertility, you want to decrease that a little bit because that puts your body into stress mode, and your cortisol levels are going to be increased, which is something that also signals the body that it's not safe to reproduce.
Those are such great tips. I know blood sugar and then the amount of fat, all of these have to do with nutrition. So like what are some nutrition advice that you can share for someone who's trying to improve their egg quality?
Sure. So, blood sugar levels, let's keep those blood sugar stable during the day. And a good way to do this is to really pay attention to your plate composition. We should focus on 40% of good carbs, 30% of fat, 30% of protein. And you can see here that I'm still using carbs. You just have to make sure, carbs are important. We just need to make sure we are eating the right carbs at the right time with the right um, proteins and fat. And so don't eliminate carbs or fat completely. Fat is also something that it became kind of a thing. Like if you are eating healthy, you need to eat low fat. And that can be dangerous because we need that fat. Again, we need to focus on the right fats. But eliminating fat completely is actually not good for fertility either. So I think the point here is really focus on nourishing. We're not starving. I've had people reach out to me and say, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do because I'm not even eating anymore." Like really being restrictive and not that's not the goal for fertility. You're not sending the right signals to your body to so if you safe to reproduce. And so really focus on incorporating whole foods, maintaining that stable blood sugar and getting adequate protein and including healthy fats in your diet.
I feel like if you're not eating right or not eating, not only you don't get the right nutrient for fertility, you actually like increase that cortisol in your body because your body is like stressed out and not getting the right nutrient, and it's like a double whammy.
Exactly. Exactly.
So if you had all the time in the world and every ingredient on hand, what would be your go-to meal for like dinner tonight? And then, if you're trying to promote healthy eggs while trying to conceive.
Sure. Um, it doesn't need to be that hard. You don't need a lot of time. If you're not used to cooking, it might take you a little while to get used to it, but then it becomes part of your routine. But an amazing meal for your dinner could be a wild caught salmon because it has that protein and that good fat, the omega-3 that we need. Also, sweet potato, the carbs, the complex carbs that it's so important as well. Let's have some sauteed dark leaf greens, which brings us the folate, the antioxidants. And when we talk about greens, I really like to point out that if you can saute those greens, it's better than raw because you absorb the nutrients much better. You can sprinkle some pumpkin seeds for zinc, avocado with some lime and salt for that healthy fats. And for desserts, you can have some berries, which are like a powerhouse of antioxidants and they don't spike your blood sugar. So not that hard.
That sounds absolutely delicious. I feel like I could eat that every single meal, including breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. One breakfast that I ate a lot when I was trying to conceive, and I still do, but it was like a priority for me. It was like eggs with avocado and berries because it does bring a lot of those good ingredients in one meal.
I feel like, we're covered a lot of information, and oftentimes when people start this journey and realizing that they can actually improve their egg quality, before seeing a doctor or work alongside during IVF, so they could get really overwhelmed. And it's really important to work with someone like you. So my next question is, how can someone work with you?
Sure. So I have two um, approaches. I have my one-on-one coaching. We know where we were going to work together for about 3 to 4 months because of the time that we can increase egg and sperm quality. Where we're going to do a personalized program. We're going to look at your whole body. We're going to look at blood work, um, environmental toxicants, and really use evidence-based strategies. But I also have an on-demand program where people can learn all of this thing and in it apply themselves. So it really depends on how they like to work, what's more effective to them. And they can just reach out to me via Instagram. They can send me a DM. I also have a form on my bio that people can fill out if they want to schedule an appointment with me. I have a free first consultation where we can look at their case and see if we are a good fit for each other. So Instagram would be a good way to reach out to me.
Amazing. Anything else you would like to share or promote?
I, I just wanted to leave people with a message of hope that there's so much that can be done to optimize fertility. And through infertility, for someone to be sterile, it's really rare. And I don't even like to use this word infertility, more like fertility challenges or subfertility, because even if it's considered like a serious case, they are a result of lifestyle that people have been exposed to so many years, and there's so many things that can be done to improve those cases. And so don't let diagnosis define you in your journey to parenthood. There's a lot that can be done. And I think that is the message that I want to leave people with. It's not the end. Even if you've been trying to conceive for a while, this journey might not be what you plan to. Um, but there is things that you can do.
Absolutely. I love it. I also just want to add a little bit, kind of related to your message, is that people also need to be patient, right? Like it does take 3 months for egg quality, sperm quality to improve. But if you think about it, like 3 months with the whole lifespan, it's not that much time considering you're literally conceiving a human being that you're going to be responsible for this human being for at least the next 18 years. That's a lot of time, a lot of investment. And then the flip side is I think people spend a lot of time preparing their wedding, right? Like we spend so much time and energy preparing their wedding and nobody really planning for pregnancy, which is crazy
It
considering how much investment you're going to make on this, right? Like this kid in the next 18 years.
Totally agree. And I think that comes from, unfortunately, the culture, the medical culture that we grew up with. Everything is solved with a pill. A lot of people come to me. What is the one supplement that you think I could taste? I'm like, guys, there is no magic pill. If there was one, there's a lot of good supplements, but each one contributes to different things. And it's not just about the supplement, like it is a whole thing. We're talking about years of being exposed, of not being doing the right things that people didn't even know. So yes, people need to be patient.
I love it. I love it. Until next time, we're going to have to invite you back, talk more detail, or maybe even talk about what supplements that people should be considering for what purposes.
Yes,
So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today.
of course, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You
And Happy
too.
New
Bye.
Year again.
Happy New Year. Bye bye.
Bye.